All right, Max's personal statement. The nice thing about this personal statement is there is no introduction. We can just jump right into it.
Yeah, we don't really need the introduction because, maybe what we should do, Ben, is we should make a uniform introduction with LSAT, undergraduate GPA, school, major,
Sure.
but maybe that's it,
Yeah.
right? Like the whole
Okay.
preamble
Mm-hmm.
that the school isn't going to read kind of taints us in our analysis of the personal statement. But they will have LSAT, GPA, name of your school, your major. Anyway, we don't even have that for Max. We just have purely the statement.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
Well, before we even read it, I will tell you, I'm looking down on it and um it looks like it's only one page, single space. So that is inviting me into it because it seems shorter than it, or at least short enough. But I don't like the fact
Okay.
that each of these paragraphs are like extraordinarily long. There's
It looks to me
only
like a wall of text. I mean, of course, this will be double spaced by the time Max actually submits it. But yeah, right now we're looking at it's three super long block
paragraphs.
paragraphs
Yeah.
and then one short paragraph. And I can imagine, yeah, you just the the admissions person who has a stack of applications to get through that day, they get their cup of coffee and they look at this and they're like, whoa, those big paragraphs are not inviting.
Huge. I'm just curious why people don't break things up more. You need to break things up even if you're talking about the same thing. Just like here's a somewhat logical reason to stop and start again. Let people breathe. Okay, I'm going to read. It says, I work as a special constable in the healthcare sector. First sentence. It starts with I, it then has a verb, but I don't like the verb work in general because it's vague. And I don't feel like I'm learning anything new that I would have not already seen on your resume.
That's a straight up resume line item, right? It's going to say
Yeah.
the name of the employer and it's going to have the title special constable. So it's a waste of space because it's just rehashing a resume line.
So I think Max tried to follow our rules and create a sentence that starts with I and use a verb, in this case, work. But unfortunately, there's no substance here. You got to go further. Okay. So Max continues. Whoa. I'm already not liking the beginning of this next sentence.
Right.
Employed and appointed by the provincial government, I enforce various provincial legislations, such as the Mental Health Act. Okay, I don't feel like we need to know who you're employed or appointed by. It's also kind of vague.
I think we could, yeah. Okay, so I don't like the employed and appointed by, probably just employed by. I don't think we need employed and appointed. But putting that aside, if you just show yourself doing something, we will be able to infer that you're a government employee who is enforcing the law.
Yeah.
I hate enforce various provincial legislations.
That's huge.
Also, laws
Yeah.
is what you meant to say there. You're a cop, I think. Constable is a police officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a cop enforcing the law, specifically mental. This is a mental health police officer.
Hmm.
But that's all we can learn from those two sentences. Think about how many words there are there And what we've really learned there, I'm a mental health care cop, right?
Yeah.
There
Yep.
anything, is there one thing there that isn't captured by I'm a mental health care cop?
No, the only thing here, the only other thing I seem to be picking up on is this person feels like they're in Canada.
I think they're in Canada, yes. Would be my guess because of
Yeah.
constable and provincial government. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I it's interesting here. Like they say I enforce or Max says I enforce various provincial legislations, right? Which we were just going after. It's the tendency to go big and like try to
Right.
summarize everything. Like,
Well, and to make it sound grand,
yeah.
right? Like
What
he
if
had to use the word legislation there. He had to put legislation.
he's like, oh, it's law related, right? No, just Mental Health Act. We get it. If you said I enforce the Mental Health Act, I don't need to know that you also enforce other laws.
I think we can cut 100% of those first two sentences and just get into the meat of if you show me what you actually do, tell me a
Mm-hmm.
real specific story about you doing a thing, then I can infer all of the rest of it. Also, I have your resume. So if I'm curious, what exactly is who is his employer? I can look that stuff up on your resume. I don't You can tell me a story without making it this
Yeah.
grand I enforce various provincial legislations. No. All right, third sentence.
Yeah. Under this act, I apprehend people with mental illnesses and bring them to designated facilities where they can get help.
I would remove the word apprehend from that sentence.
Yeah. It sounds like you're like, I mean, I guess this person Max is arresting them.
Yeah,
Apprehend
yeah, but I would just I would focus on the part where you're
or
bringing
you're
them to the
helping.
facility to get help. The
Yeah.
I apprehend people is very cop speak,
Mm-hmm.
and without taking any political sides, there's a lot of like anti-cop sentiment out there right now. And so if you are a cop, thank you for your service and everything, but please try to stay away from like the cop speak because there's going to be a lot of readers who are going to be like turned off. It's a cops and military folk have this militarized way of speaking, and
Yeah.
it is going to turn off certain civilians. And so if you could just keep it human, you pick up these people, you take them to the facility where they can get help, that's fine.
You don't even have to say that, right? You could just say, I bring people with mental illnesses to facilities where they can get help. I mean, that itself seems even wordy, but the
Yeah.
point is like you bring them there. We don't need to like imagine you
Apprehend.
also like forcibly
Exactly. I don't
getting
need
them in
you
your car.
pulling a gun on them or cuffing them or putting them in the back of the squad car. I don't need to see any of that stuff. That's not the story you want to tell.
Yeah. Next sentence. For example, okay, in general, you don't need for example in your personal statement. We get it. You're providing an example of you doing this kind of thing.
Well, he also says the next thing he says is one day, which if you
Yep.
say one day, then we understand that you're giving an example.
Yep. Exactly. One day, I found a lady who was verbally aggressive with hospital staff. Okay, I'm a little perplexed by this sentence. Like you came upon this verbally aggressive lady, or you were called to this situation.
Yeah, this I found a lady. That's almost like you're going around looking for these people. Like, I'm going to arrest people and take them to the mental health care facility if they're being verbally abusive. No, yeah, you got called. The hospital called you.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I spoke to the lady, she said that she wanted to leave. Okay. The hospital staff was concerned about her well being and asked me to stop her. I followed the patient and asked her to stay, but she said that she had to go home and cleanse her baby. Sorry, where is this
Wow.
going? I mean, I guess this is a day in the life of this kind of work. Okay. I asked her to clarify, and she told me that she had a child at home that was possessed by a devil, so she was heading home to kill it.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay.
I mean, I don't doubt that this happened, Max. This is just an interesting lead in. Okay. After
It's
hearing this,
wildly powerful, this image, the story you're telling. Like, if you're going for a hook, I guess you've hooked us.
yeah.
My problem is, it's not about you. This is a lady who has big problems. Are
Yeah.
you going to solve her problem?
Well, okay. So this is Max continuing. After hearing this, I arrested her under the Mental Health Act.
I hate it.
Max, I do like your sentences because they're short, but the content of your sentences needs work. Yeah, this is again that militarized.
He's not like, he doesn't understand how this hits civilians. He doesn't understand how this hits like pacifists or soft urban intellectual people, right? Like, you go around and arrest people with mental health problems. You got to stop saying apprehend and arrest. That's not, nobody wants to hear about mental health, people with mental health problems being arrested. This is not a thing that people want to hear about.
I get it. It's probably necessary, but it's just an image that
It's too sad. It's too depressing of a topic, especially when he uses, I think you could soften it a lot by taking apprehend and arrest out of it and
just say
use
I
a
brought her to this
euphemism.
facility. Yeah.
You brought her to the facility. Exactly. Not I arrested her and took her to the facility. Just I escorted her to the facility.
Mm-hmm.
I drove her to the facility.
I drove her to
I,
the,
I
yeah.
helped her get checked into the facility. And if
Yeah.
that was at gunpoint, we don't want to know about that part.
No. He continues. I then brought her back to the hospital, ensuring that she would stay and see a psychiatrist. The assessment
Wait a
huh?
second. Well, this now doesn't even make any sense because one sentence ago, she was in the hospital. I never
Yeah,
see
it
her
sounds like she
leaving
walked away.
the hospital.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, he's bringing her back to the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Where is it? Okay. The assessment revealed that she had a serious mental disorder, possibly drug induced, and had to stay at the hospital for her own safety and the safety of others. I contacted social services in my local police department and advised them of the situation. Okay. You reported to your superiors. That's not like super impressive. I'm not saying it's great. I'm glad you did it. I'm just saying, I don't know. I called and told people what happened. The police responded to her house and found a toddler who was left home alone. Luckily, the child was unharmed and was taken by social services.
There ain't no lucky about that. Oh my God. This reminds me of do you remember the personal statement that we read on the show with the missionary
Oh my
who
gosh.
gleefully told us the story of going into the
Uh,
dirt floor hut with the dirty kids and getting the kids taken away from mom?
yeah, yep, getting the mom like arrested, arrested again. Oh, and he had
Max,
saved the day. Yeah.
Max, do not tell us a story about a toddler getting taken away from their parent. No matter how fucked up the parent is, no matter how psychotic the parent is, we're not here to get bummed out. We don't want to hear about this story. This is not the right topic. That's we can go ahead and axe that whole first paragraph. There's no way that's appropriate for a personal statement. You're supposed to be putting your best foot forward. You're supposed to be selling me on the idea that you're going to be a kick-ass lawyer. You're supposed to be making a case for yourself. You're going to open up the case for yourself with, hey, let me tell you about this time where there was a crazy lady who was on drugs and wanted to kill her baby, and the baby got taken away. Isn't that lucky?
Isn't it good that I was called? I mean, really, it's almost like you tried to take more credit for this than you deserve, because you were called here and you did your job, and you're like, I found this lady. Like, huh? And then the ultimate outcome isn't that great. I would, just cut it all. Yeah.
Max is not, by the way, so we can infer from this now that Max is not like like a police, does not work for the city police. Max is a hospital police.
It's like a mental health,
officer. Which, by the way, that's great. I'm not like actually shitting on your job. I'm shitting on the way you're presenting your job.
Yeah.
You have to tell us about you solving problems. You didn't solve a problem here. They called you in because there was a crazy lady, and you made the crazy lady stay at the hospital so that they could figure out that she was psychotic so that they could go take away her kid. That's not lawyer stuff, even remotely. And I don't see you doing anything here besides being like a security guard, which there's nothing wrong with security guards. It's just that you're not selling me on the picture of you being a lawyer here. I think there's got to be other stories to tell.
Most of these sentences are not about Max.
Exactly. No, they're about a crazy lady,
the hospital,
and the devil, and the cops, and
the devil,
and the toddler getting taken away.
Yeah.
So, what was Max's actual role here? He talked to the lady. Indeed, she was crazy, which the hospital staff told him, this lady wants to leave and we don't want her to leave. Max talked to the lady and she said she wanted to leave because the devil possessed her baby and she had to go kill her baby. And Max sensibly kept her there because that's Max's job.
Yeah, basically all Max did was keep the lady at the hospital and, or bring her back, I guess, because she walked away, and informed others so they could do their job. Not so Max could do his.
But let's just be clear. If the punchline of your story is a toddler getting taken away from their parents, that's not the story that you want to put in your personal statement.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the first paragraph.
Okay. Max continues. Paragraph number 2. I also enforce offenses related to smoking in public places.
Related
I don't know where
to?
this is.
Why the related to?
I don't know.
You mean you're a smoking cop? Okay, like you're a smoking cop. That's fine. You don't need to do you see the fluffing, like the pumping up of it?
Yeah.
Like yeah. I enforce by the way, enforce offenses. I don't think that's
correct.
That's
not correct. Yeah, you get people to break the law.
Yeah, you don't make people smoke. You make people not smoke. You enforce provisions against the offense of smoking in public places. But just don't, it's overselling.
Yeah.
You keep people from smoking at the hospital? Okay.
Okay, he continues, smoking on hospital property is strictly prohibited. Under the Tobacco Control Act, I have the authority to issue provincial violation tickets, okay, just tickets, to punish offenders who do not comply with the law. That's what an offender is. It's someone who does not comply with the law.
This is 3 sentences that say, I write people tickets for smoking at the hospital.
I write people. I write tickets for people for smokers. I write tickets for smokers at
I
the
write,
hospital.
yeah, I give smokers tickets. I give hospital smokers tickets.
There you go. He continues, however, the mere punishment is not always the best solution. For instance, one of the hospitals was particularly bad for smoking offenses. The hospital was bad, or there, okay, people at this hospital. Every time I stopped at the hospital, I had to confront several clients who were smoking in non designated areas. I don't know why this strikes me as funny. For some reason, it just seems funny. Hey, you there, stop. After several attempts to punish the offenders, this is this is that militarized speak, like seeing the world as like do-gooders and offenders.
Yeah.
I decided to go another way. I met with the hospital manager and discussed the problem. She agreed and asked me to share my plan to reduce the number of smoking offenses. I noted that there were benches and ashtrays in the area where smoking was prohibited.
Ashtrays. There's an ashtray right by the no smoking sign.
Yeah, that's a mixed signal, which which encouraged people to smoke. Yep. Okay.
Hey.
I recommended to remove benches and ashtrays, put a sign that prohibits smoking, and create a designated area for smokers as there was none previously. That's a weird use of as, means because here. I don't know. I see what Max is doing here. He's encountered a problem and he's come up with a solution.
Um, I will give Max 1 point of writing credit for using generally short sentences, but I
Yes, Max
also will
has short sentences.
strongly recommend that Max get help with his editing. There, almost every sentence needs to be rewritten. This is not strong writing. It
Well,
Max,
there's a lot of redundancy. That's the problem. It's
there's a,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of that, but there's a lot of most of these sentences are broken. I mean, Ben is, I don't know if he's even conscious of it, but he's actually fixing lots of the stuff that Max did wrong. As you're reading, Ben, you're sort of naturally correcting and adding words and stuff where those words aren't actually there. Max, you need to find like your top three English writers, editor friends, and you need to get some help. We do kind of offer this now in the Demon. In Demon Live, Carl is doing a weekly admissions workshop, and we're not like actually editing people's statements for them, but I am sure that in the Demon community, you can find friends at those admissions workshops. You can make a friend who would be happy to, edit, like cooperatively edit this and help you to clean this up, because this language does not strike me as written by a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. Max continues. Where was that? Okay, there was a small grass island that was close to the main entrance. Okay. I suggested to use that space to create a smoking spot. The site manager welcomed my approach and followed my recommendations. A week later, I found that benches and ashtrays were removed and that there was a big sign stating that smoking was prohibited. I also saw a small shed in the suggested area where people were smoking. Now, as a result, I hardly see any violators at this hospital, and the number of smoking offenses has been significantly reduced.
We could keep this anecdote.
Yeah,
We could shorten it a lot. I mean, I think
a lot.
you could get that down to 2 sentences, you know. But you identified a problem, you took initiative, you got the problem solved. I like the general gist of that. I do not
I
think that it merits an entire, because that's a third of the personal statement.
yeah.
And there ain't enough there to justify a third of a personal statement. You were like, hey, you got all these smokers out here. Why do you have ashtrays? I don't want to write these people tickets. You have ashtrays. I don't want to write them tickets. Put a no smoking sign, make a smoking area. And they did that. That's great. But you don't need a whole big ass block paragraph about that.
Yeah. And then also, like, so what we've already talked about, you got to clean up these sentences and tone down the, I don't know, the cop speak, right? The violators
You know,
and the,
it's Canada, so it's probably not as sensitive of an issue. But boy, in the United States, most law schools are pretty progressive places. And if you come in hot with like looking like a cop, like just, you know, and I'm not shitting on cops. I'm not at all. I'm just trying to tell you how you might be received if you come in with like a very militarized, you know, because I mean, what he actually did here is this isn't the cop in a bad way type of behavior, right? Cop in a bad way would just be like, go there every day and write as many tickets as you can.
and if someone gives you trouble, throw
Arrest
them in
them.
your car.
Yeah, beat them. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not what Max is doing here. Max is like, I don't want to be writing these people tickets. This is ridiculous. Why don't we just solve a problem so I don't have to write these people tickets? And that's great. More like that would be good. But
But
the language of calling them violators and offenders and all that stuff is,
yeah, it actually, it betrays, or I don't know if betrays is the right word.
I think it is.
Well, it doesn't, it reveals on some level how you think about them, but I think it's not actually how you think about them, Max, because you're trying to solve the problem. You see them as people, but you're talking about them as if they're violators. But
Right.
really, they're just people who are like, what? Oh, I'm smoking in the wrong place. Oh, sorry. Like, you saw the real problem and you solved it. And I think that's good. But it's just weird how you kind of talk about them as like these, like, this scourge in society or something.
Yeah, you don't want to be referring to people as violators.
Yeah.
They have done an act which is a violation, but that does not make them a violator. That's not the right way to be talking about it.
Yeah.
Outside of the police station, that's not the right way to be talking about it.
Okay. Max continues. This is the third paragraph. Again, long. I have the authority to arrest people for public intoxication under the Liquor Control Act. Okay, we get it that you have that authority. You don't need to tell us.
You know what he's doing here? That's annoying.
Mm.
He mentioned the in caps Mental Health Act at the
Oh, he's
beginning of the
like
first
dropping a
paragraph.
bunch of acts.
That's the second sentence of the first paragraph. Then in the third sentence, beginning of the third sentence of the second paragraph, he mentions the capitalized Tobacco Control Act. Then in the third paragraph, in the first sentence, he mentions the Liquor Control Act. And it's like you're trying too hard to tie this into you're not a lawyer. And you specifically mentioning these acts and, you know, like in the first paragraph, the word legislations,
Yeah.
you're trying too hard to make it look like like you're law adjacent. You're protesting too much. You don't need to do that. We know that cops are law enforcement. We know that you know things about the law. You know statutes more than any other law school applicant.
And we know that you're enforcing the law. We don't think that you're enforcing something else.
You don't need to say any of that.
Yeah.
It's actually worse when you specifically name these acts because it just comes off as it has the exact opposite effect that you intend. It makes you look naive. It makes you look like you think you know things that you don't actually know. And if you would just instead cut that out and just talk about your actual work, deciding whether or not to enforce, deciding whether or not to write a ticket, that's actually a really good theme, I think. I mean, that's one of the things that you're going to study in criminal law. You know, prosecutorial discretion is a huge issue. And you know more about that than anybody else because you're the first person that gets people, like, are we going to get the government's hooks into these people or not? Are we going to write these smokers tickets or not? Are we going to arrest these people for public intoxication? Or do we have another solution? And that could be a perfectly fine theme. But I don't like it's like name dropping of the acts,
Yep.
which
Exactly.
spins it in the wrong direction, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
I use this authority primarily for holding intoxicated people who may be at risk for themselves.
Why do you have to use the word authority in the first sentence and in the second sentence of that paragraph? Every time you say that, it makes you scarier. It makes you like, I'm imagining you big and bulked up and all copped up, and that's not what I want to be thinking about. I want to be a little more plain spoken here. What type of people do you run across? What type of decisions do you make?
He also says people who may be at risk for themselves. I think it should be to themselves.
The editing is pretty bad. The writing and editing here is pretty bad. Max, definitely, I'm not saying you need to get like paid professional help with your editing, but you do need to get help with your editing before you submit this.
He continues, after arresting, okay, again, we don't need that word. I can either release the person when they are sober or ask a family member to pick up that person.
Could have said to pick them up, but
pick
okay.
them up, yeah. One time, I had to arrest a drunk teenage girl who was dropped off at the hospital by her friends. She wanted to leave, but it was a cold winter night, and she was not dressed for the weather.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want you to be talking about drunk teenagers and their appropriateness of their dress.
They don't have enough clothes.
You're not,
for the weather.
it may in fact be at your discretion to determine whether they should be let out into the snow or not. But I don't want to hear about some dude looking at a teenage girl who's drunk and deciding whether or not her dress is appropriate and making any decision. It's just, you're skeeving me out here. I don't.
Yeah.
Let's avoid that topic, please.
I tried to convince her to stay, but she kept refusing. That's a weird image too. Like the cop, like trying to talk this girl into something. At some point, she decided to run from me. Oh, now now you sound even more.
This is getting
sketchy.
creepier. Yeah.
Yeah. So I arrested her. Oh no. Searched for an ID.
This is a real bad image now. You're searching a drunk teenage girl who you already said was not appropriately dressed, and now you're searching her looking for an ID. You've arrested her and you're searching her. Don't tell us about this, please. Don't. This is an error in judgment to include this in your personal statement.
Yeah. He found her parents contact information and asked them to pick her up. Her parents arrived later and took her home. They were grateful that I did not let her go. Another time, I arrested a woman who I found lying unconscious outside.
Stop
you
saying
arrested.
Stop arresting people.
Okay. She was severely intoxicated. Like, you could just say, I helped a woman who I found lying unconscious outside. Even then, though, I don't know about these stories. She was severely intoxicated and it was freezing outside. Okay. I lifted her from the ground, placed her in my patrol vehicle. What vehicle? And brought her to the nearest hospital. She stayed at the hospital for several hours. As soon as she got sober, I called a cab and she went home safely. So wait, you waited at the hospital? I
Yeah,
guess
and
I
this is two in one paragraph. This is two stories about Max putting his hands on drunk women.
yeah.
And I know that that's part of your job. And I know, and I'm not suggesting that I think that you did anything untoward or improper
Hmm.
here at all. What I am saying is, let's not talk about these instances.
Yeah.
The reader does not want to hear about you arresting drunk women. That
No.
is, it was a, now that I think about it, it was a woman up top as well. So we got a crazy lady and
Oh
two
yeah.
drunk ladies. You got to think about the big picture you're painting here, and I don't, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, waiting at the hospital
I don't know. That
to
sounds
make sure
creepy.
she's okay, to call a cab for her. Can't the hospital do that?
Yeah.
It's like mildly, and again, I this is not what I actually think, but a reader might see that as weirdly stalker-ish.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that. I'm thinking about the different ways that this statement might be perceived. And you taking a drunk lady to the hospital and then waiting until she's released so that you can call a cab for her. Oh, did you tell the cab her address? Did you follow the cab to her house to make sure that she got in safely? I don't know. It's just the reader's going to be asking questions that you don't want asked here, just because it's not. These anecdotes aren't good enough to justify the creep factor that comes in.
Yeah. Okay, last paragraph, which is a lot shorter, thankfully. I enjoy working in law enforcement. I don't really want to hear about your feelings, so
Right.
we can cut that.
Yeah.
This work allows me to help people and serve my community. Okay.
I,
I
I
hope,
grant you that it does. Yes. Great.
yeah. I hope that, I hope, huh, okay. I hope that legal education will allow me to become a criminal prosecutor, which will be a significant step in my career. I don't think the law schools really care what you hope. Um,
One sentence that you hope to become a criminal prosecutor, that's okay. I think Ben's right that they don't really care what you think or what you feel or what you want. They care more about what you've done. But tying this in to say, I'm going to law school because I want to be a prosecutor, that's fine.
I think I'm more taking issue with the sentence or the way he's saying this. I hope that legal education will allow me to become a criminal prosecutor. I'd rather just say, I want to be a criminal prosecutor.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
going to
And
law
we
school
don't need
because I
the
want to do
comma,
this.
which will be a significant step in my career. It goes without saying, if you're applying to law school, you're doing that to get a legal education to make a step in your career,
Yeah.
because those things are true of 100% of every applicant. 0% of applicants should ever say those things.
Yeah.
Now, you want to be a criminal prosecutor, that's specific to you, so you can say that part, but not the legal education and not the significant step in my career part.
Um,
I wish we had better news.
yeah.
Most of this has to go.
All of the first paragraph, all of the third paragraph, half of the second paragraph, and half of your last paragraph is gone.
Yeah. But I do think that there's a theme there that maybe Max could latch onto. You know, you're saying an insightful thing here about discretion, about whether or not to write tickets, whether or not to arrest people. I think that could be an interesting theme. there's a way to do this where I think you could keep the smoking anecdote, and I think you need to come up with ideally a couple more anecdotes, or at least one more anecdote where you decide not to
Not
arrest
to arrest.
someone.
Yep, 100%.
Stop arresting people.
If those were your two stories, you'd sound a lot more
Like a lawyer.
Human and
Yeah.
like the kind of sort of thoughtful, well-informed people we want going to law school. Like, hey, I know what I can do, but I don't think I should because this is probably a better solution. And they'd be like, wow, you've actually dealt with that shit. Come to our law school and tell other people why prosecutorial discretion is so important and how it furthers our real goal, which is to help everyone do
Careful
better.
to not lecture the reader about prosecutorial discretion.
No. Yeah,
And
I'm sorry. You're just
instead
telling these stories and it becomes true that you must be aware of that because you're not arresting people.
give examples of places where you used your discretion wisely, but specifically, I want you to not arrest the person. I mean, hey, this drunk girl who was about to go out in the snow and die, maybe she deserved to be arrested. Maybe you did the exact right thing. This woman who was laying outside drunk in the snow, maybe she needed to be arrested. Maybe you did the exact right thing. The crazy woman who was about to kill her kid, seems like clearly you did the right thing. But that's not the right stories to tell. The right stories to tell are the places where you had authority to bang somebody up and you chose not to. And the smokers example is a perfect example. The culture might be different in Canada or in Canadian law schools, but the law schools in the United States don't want to hear about you choosing to arrest. They want to hear about places where you were able to solve the problem in a different way.
Yeah, even if the culture though is more open to arresting in Canada, there is nothing wrong with telling a story of where you don't.
There's just nothing special about a cop arresting somebody.
There's nothing special about it.
Right? I mean, that's what cops do. So anytime you actually are arresting or anytime you are actually writing a ticket, it's mundane. That's what cops, that's a lot of their job. That's what a 5-year-old thinks a cop does. A 25-year-old or the 35 or 45 or 55-year-old who's going to be reading your law school application would prefer to hear the more subtle story of where you very likely could have put somebody in jail, but instead decided not to. Or you could have fined them, but instead you decided not to. Those are going to be better stories.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. I hope that's helpful.